Yeah, it's like super disturbing.
Blanche Monnier.
When you sent me that picture, I was like mortified.
She was locked in your room for 25 years.
You've locked your daughter in the attic. Blanche was 25.
Blanche Monnier.
So, Kate, you originally heard the story online because you used to watch those top 5 videos. Top 5 worst mothers of all history. And then you found Blanche Monnier's mother in there. I think
No.
I could see her being a top 5 worst mother ever for sure. I could not think of a worse mother.
Can I explain?
No. Yeah, you can.
No, I said I used to watch those videos on YouTube where they list out like top 10, maybe like top 10 superheroes, top 10 villains, top 10 worst people in history, and like top 10 horror movies and all that.
Right.
So like I think this one was from top 10 worst mother or top 5 worst mother in history.
Yeah, it makes sense, dude. Could you think of a worse one?
This is literally the only one I remember because it stuck out to me so much.
Because it was the worst, probably number 1.
I remember it till this day.
Yeah, it's like super disturbing. When you sent me that picture, I was like mortified. Should we give like an overview though? Do you want me to quickly tell the story?
Well, initially what I've heard from what I remember from the top 5 video of like worst mother was it just gave a very brief summary of this girl who was born in France, and she was born in a very she was like a socialite family. Like they were considered to be like noble lineage in France. And obviously she was very beautiful. What happened was she had a really strict mother, and when she was 25, she fell in love with a penniless lawyer.
Right.
And her mother was just like, no, you're not marrying a lawyer. Her mother wanted her to marry someone who's like same status and like same, just like financially well off as well. And she was like, no. And then her mother locked her in the attic or in this room for however long, and then it ended up being 25 years. Like she was locked in the room for 25 years. That was the brief summary of the story.
Right. That's like basically the entire story, but there's lots to break down within that, right? Because the video that I watched, they said that her mother gave her a chance to leave, right? She kind of gave her an ultimatum. She said, like, I will let you out, but you can't marry this guy. You can't be sneaking out at night to go see him and stuff. Like, you have to listen to me. But she refused. She was like, no, I love him, and, you know, I'm going to stay in this attic for as long as it takes. And that just happened to be, like, 25 years. It's not funny, but, like, it's crazy.
No, but I heard that version too, but I don't like, how would they know that her mother gave her that option? Because I just feel like at one point she must have given in and said, hey, you know what? Okay, let me out.
You think so?
That's what I didn't understand about the story. Like, at first it said that the mother locked her in the room, and it said that the mother gave her an option, like, if you obey me and not marry the lawyer, then I will let you out. And apparently she disagreed in the beginning. I can get that part where maybe in like the first 2 or 3 days, she's like, no, I'm not gonna listen to you. Like, I still want to run off and like marry the lawyer. But after a month, you think she still has that tenacity to be like, I'm not gonna listen to you.
The way that I thought about it was that she was probably, like, very stubborn for the first bit, right? But maybe by the time she started getting, like, really tired, like, or the moment where she was finally like, okay, like, maybe, like, let me out, it was too late. Like, because imagine being the mother, like, how are you supposed to go back on that? At a certain point, like, you've gone too far as the mother, and it's been, like, enough time that you've locked your daughter in the attic. Like, she has not had a shower, she's basically being tortured, right? So at a certain point, the mother's probably like, oh no, like, I'm in too deep, right? Like, what have I done? I'm a monster. And she's afraid to, like, let her daughter out.
Oh, so you think the mother was afraid to, like, face her daughter in that condition?
I feel like she was afraid of that, yes, but also of the consequences, because she's literally torturing another human being. That's considered torture. She's in a room that's pitch black, boarded up, there's no light. She doesn't even have access to a washroom. She's basically just decaying in there. At what point can you go back on that? Versus it's too late. You've already committed, like, a huge crime.
Can we describe the room? Because there was like notes on a thing. So I actually have notes on it.
Yeah, tell us.
So it said that the room that she was locked in was pitch black. All the windows was nailed shut and it was infested with rats and insects. She had like a straw bed to sleep on. And the only way she was fed was by her mother sliding food underneath like the door crack.
Do you want to talk about like when the police report happened 25 years later?
Or when they discovered her?
Yeah, or they got the anonymous letter.
Oh. Like how was she even, like how did police get tipped off to even go to the Monnier's house to look for Blanche?
So there was an anonymous letter to the Attorney General, and it says, "I have the honor to inform you of an exceptionally serious occurrence. I speak of a spinster who is locked up in Madame Monnier's house, half-starved and living on a putrid litter for the past 25 years. In a word, in her own filth." So that was the letter that the police received from an anonymous sender.
So initially the police went to the Monnier's house and they went upstairs and they noticed a very foul smell coming out of the attic room. So they went into the room and they said it was like, this is from the information I gathered. They said the room was pitch black and it took a lot of effort to pry open the window that was completely like nailed shut, and there's also like heavy curtains covering it as well.
Right.
So when they pried the window open, the light went into the room for the first time in 25 years, and that's when they noticed Blanche in the corner in her straw bed, like shriveled up.
Yeah.
So this is the account the police had. Like this is what they said. This is quoting the police. "The unfortunate woman was lying completely naked on a rotten straw mattress. All around her was formed a sort of crust made from her excrement, fragments of meat, vegetables, fish, and rotten bread. We also saw oyster shells and bugs running across Monnier's bed. The air was so unbreathable, the odor given off by the room was so rank that it was impossible for us to stay any longer to proceed with our investigation." So that was the state of the room that she stayed in for 25 years.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
I mean, I can't even imagine being like her mother, like seeing, because I'm sure the mother has not seen her for 25 years either.
Yeah.
So it's like you locked your perfectly healthy, pretty daughter up, and then she comes out looking like this ghoul. Like, how do you?
Like a shell of a human, an old woman.
Like, what kind of mother is that? I mean, she must have like some sort of real like sociopath energy.
Yeah, it's like super messed up. It's like very disturbing. And the other weird thing is like the mother died 15 days after.
Oh yeah, she died of heart
heart
complications because she had like heart issues.
If you had to take a guess, who sent the letter?
I think it was definitely one of the maids, because they said in the documentary, they said in the video that the maid was also aware that Blanche was locked up in her room, but they feared the family and they didn't say anything.
Yeah, probably feared like even losing their job and stuff.
And like I said, it's like a different time, right? And like the family was very powerful.
Yeah.
It's just hard to say. I felt like it was definitely one of the maids that probably reported it to the police after 25 years.
I also heard another option was the brother.
The brother might have reported as well.
Yeah, because we kind of like left the brother out. Maybe we should also get on that.
Well, it could have been, you know what? It could have been the brother that was feeding her, because the brother was put on trial because the mother died. They couldn't trial her, but the brother was put on trial, and he said that he did, in all his power, he did what he could to help his sister, even though he was an accomplice, but he was not charged for the crime.
He was also a lawyer.
A penniless lawyer.
Yeah, but he was also a lawyer, so maybe he got out of that easily.
Well, they mentioned that back in the day, they didn't really have a law that states that you have to help someone that you know that's like in trouble.
Right.
And they also mentioned that, or he mentioned that it wasn't him that locked her sister up. Like it was all like the mother, and the mother had control of all the finances and stuff. So like if he were to disobey the mother, she would withdraw like all the finances and he would be ruined. So that was his reasoning. But he said that he did all he could to, help his sister as best he could to his ability. Like, he said he read to her, like read the newspaper to her, and like checked up on her once in a while. So maybe he was the one who continued putting under the food under the door crack.
Yeah, or maybe he was the one who actually reported it eventually. I also heard that maybe he was the one who reported it eventually because he was worried that when his mother passed, he would be responsible.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, because it said, because like her mother's health was already failing because of the heart condition. So maybe,
So that's another conspiracy, that he sent in the letter because he was worried that he would have to deal with the repercussions of this whole Blanche situation.
So he reported it first, right? That makes sense.
Nightmare family.
It do be.
Yeah, disgusting. The other thing I thought was really weird was her lover just never seemed to like play a role in the story, you know? We just heard of him as like she fell in love with somebody, and it's like, why isn't that guy like trying to figure out where she went? Did the mother just tell her like, oh, she moved to England? Like, did the mother just tell him that?
You gotta also think that her family being as prominent as they were in France, and him being just like I'm saying this now because like lawyers nowadays they make a lot of money, but I guess lawyers in the 1800s, they didn't have influence, they didn't have a voice, so it was probably really dismissed. Like, he probably didn't even have the option to ask the mother like, where's Blanche? Right? Like, who would listen to him? And like, the mother wouldn't talk to him because he would be considered a low class citizen.
Yeah, but like, couldn't he still go to the police?
Yeah, but the families told everyone that she moved away to like, what did they say? Switzerland?
England or something like that.
Yeah. Like, she was gone.
I don't know. It still seems weird. Like, if I was a dude and I was like in love with somebody, I would be knocking on the door like, where the heck did she go? You know? Or like telling the police like, something is weird with this, something doesn't feel right. There's no way she would have just got up and went to England. Like, whether it's the 1800s or whatever, it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, but he'll be really like powerless to do so. He wouldn't have the resource or the authority to even do that.
To ask the police for help?
In the story, they said that the neighbors literally heard screaming from the attic room and they didn't say anything.
Oh yeah, that's true.
That's literally how much power the family has over the town.
I also heard in another story that she just said that Blanche went crazy or something. She just told everybody that Blanche went crazy.
I watched that video too. There was one version that said the family said that they were taking care of a sick relative.
Right.
So that's why there was like screaming up in the attic. And there was like another version that said that, oh, Blanche went crazy, so they had to lock her up instead of sending her to an insane asylum, because they said that, you know what, back in the day, it was more common to lock one of your crazy family members up than to send them to the asylum.
Yeah, that makes sense, because like the history of mental health is very dark, and when people did not understand it at all in the past, and that does make sense. Why
did they mention that?
Yeah,
they said that mental health back in France in the 1800s there was a very like negative stigmatization to it, and being as prominent as their family was, nobody even batted an eye. They're like, oh yeah, she went crazy, so they locked her up.
That's so like insane. Just to like note the differences in like the way that we live today versus then, right? It's kind of nice because you can definitely see that there's been like positive progress. Like, that would not happen in this day and age. Could you imagine just hearing screams coming from your neighbor's house? And then your neighbor's like, oh yeah, like, it's just my crazy daughter. Yeah. You would be like, what the heck? I'm calling 911.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it was a different period.
Yeah.
They made it seem like, oh yeah, you know what, this is very common. Like, the only thing that was uncommon was like they locked her up and they neglected her. That was the messed up part.
Right. And the amount of time.
25 years.
And no access to a bathroom even. No shower. In the darkness.
Well, that's what made it messed up. It's like they literally locked her in there. They didn't let her bathe. They didn't let her use the washroom. So she literally pooped in the room, and she was sitting in her own poop.
Yeah. I also like researched if there was any studies on the effects of like isolation on people, and I found one about a guy who had been in like solitary confinement for like 30 years, And that being said, I'm sure that he had light and access to a bathroom. So I'm sure he had access to like all those things and proper meals, and like he still knew the time, right? But he said that when he got out, he had a hard time recognizing faces, because that part of his mind didn't work to like register what a face looks like. So he would forget faces really quickly. And he also lost track of direction. He had no sense of direction. And yeah, like even up to a month of being in isolation can lower your brain mass significantly. If you're not using all these different parts of your brain, it will really change who you are. So when she got out, you know, they cleaned her up and they took her to the hospital and gave her first bath in 25 years.
Right.
And they said that she was like really pleasant and thankful to everybody. And it felt really nice to get a bath and all of that. But unfortunately, obviously, she was never able to like recover her mental state and become that girl that she once was. She would never be the same. And she was found to have like lots of different mental illnesses, anorexia, schizophrenia, amongst other things. And I think that she passed actually 10 years after being found. Something like that. Do you know the number?
It said that she died in 1913, so she was 60-something. And they found her when she was in her 50s.
Yeah, so she maybe got an additional like 10, 12 years, right? It's really nice that she was able to actually have those final years in a place where she was taken care of. So I also heard this other thing. When you're in isolation, your amygdala starts working overtime, and that is the center in your brain which triggers like fear and anxiety. So she probably was very much triggered into fear and anxiety. And then your hippocampus lowers activity, which has to do with like memory, learning, and spatial recognition kind of things. So yeah, it's interesting to know as well.
Yeah, but don't you think like after 25 years, like all those senses would just eventually fade away? Like her brain, you said, your brain starts shrinking. So it's like your body realizes it doesn't even have use for sight. Like you're not seeing, all you see is darkness. You're not using your voice. You're not talking to anyone. Communication, like all of that. Because she was quite old when they locked her up. She was 25. So she was already an adult. Yeah. So like she lived the rest, like the other half of her life in a like complete isolation. Right. So like the flight or fight thing probably happened for the first year or two, and eventually like it probably just all regressed. Like she starts going backward. Yeah, I agree. I feel like that was probably the last thing to shut off, but once that was done, her brain was just probably just, you know, surviving, I guess. Just basic bodily functions. Yeah, like basic responses like breathing, you know. That's why it's like it's like I read the story and it's very sad because she was known to be, I mean, there's pictures of her. She was a beautiful woman. And like the before and after picture of it is just so, it's like